Who's watching the watcher? Buddhism's answer to the endless watcher. Part 1. The strange question that changes everything. Sometimes a question comes to you not as a thought, but as a silence behind the thought. It's quiet, but it shakes you a little. Who's watching all of this? You notice your thoughts. You see them rise and fall. You catch your emotions bubbling up. You even begin to feel like you are watching your own mind. And in that moment, it feels like you've become more awake, more aware, like you've stepped outside the chaos. But something strange happens if you pause here. Really pause. Because right after you say, "I am observing this," another question sneaks in. Who is that I? Who is doing the observing? At first, it feels like a deep realization. You found the one who watches everything. But if you stay with it a little longer, you'll notice something odd. That sense of me watching is also just another thought. It's not a solid place you can rest on. It's not some deep self sitting quietly behind your life. It's just another image, another idea, appearing after all the others. Most people never question this layer. When they feel self-aware, they stop. They say, I've reached something deeper. But Buddhism invites a different kind of seeing, a more honest kind of seeing. A seeing that doesn't stop at the observer but gently asks, is this observer truly real? Or is it just the echo of the last thing that appeared? The Buddha pointed this out clearly in a powerful teaching to a man named 𝐵𝐴. 𝐵𝐴 asked for the shortest path to awakening, and the Buddha said something most people would never expect. He said, "In the seen, there is only the seen. In the heard, only the heard. In the sensed, only the sensed. In the cognized, only the cognized. If you can understand this, 𝐵𝐴, you will not be with that. If you are not with that, you are not in that. If you are not in that, then you are neither here, nor beyond, nor in between. That, just that, is the end of suffering." This sounds simple, but it's deeper than it seems. The Buddha didn't tell 𝐵𝐴 to find the one who sees. He didn't say, "Search for the observer inside you." He said, "Stay with the experience itself. Don't add anything on top. Don't add a me to what is seen. Don't add a watcher behind the sound." It's like this. When you hear a bird singing, there is just the sound. You don't need to add, "I hear the bird." The sound is already complete by itself. You thought awareness was your power. You thought being mindful meant you were in control. But now you begin to suspect that even this sense of control is part of the illusion. You're not falling into sleep. You're waking up from a deeper sleep, the one where the watcher thought it was real. And in that quiet space where you no longer hold the role of observer, the mind becomes light. There's no one left trying to carry awareness. It just moves. It just flows, like sound through an empty room. That's when the question fades. Not because you've answered it, but because there's no one left asking. Part 2. The mirror that reflects itself. Sometimes the mind asks a question it cannot answer, but it cannot stop asking. After wondering who is observing, another question forms, quietly, like a shadow behind the first. Who is observing the one who observes? And then, who observes that one? It seems harmless at first, a kind of curiosity, but soon it becomes a loop, like looking into a mirror that reflects another mirror. The images go on forever, and you can't tell which one is real. This is what some call infinite regression. For many, it feels like a problem, like something is broken in logic. But in Buddhism, this is not a mistake to fix. It's not an error in thinking. It's a sign. It shows that what you're trying to find, the one who knows, is not missing. It was never there. Each time you think you've found the center, you realize it's just another thought, another point in the chain. You say, "Ah, this is the one who knows," but then something behind it starts to move. And you look again, and again, and again. You never land, because there is nowhere to land. There is no final self at the end of this chain, only the habit of looking for one. Buddhism doesn't offer a final answer to that loop. It doesn't say, "This is the true observer." Instead, it quietly points to the structure of the loop itself. It says, "See the chain, and then see that the chain is empty." The way out is not to keep asking the question louder or to trace it back further. The way out is to stop believing that the chain leads anywhere at all. The idea that there must be a true center, that's the trap. It's like chasing a reflection in water. Each time you think you're close, the surface ripples and it slips away. But the reflection was never the problem. The belief that it was solid, that was what kept you stuck. This is why the Buddha often described consciousness as something luminous, but covered. Not because it hides something solid underneath, but because we imagine that light must come from someone inside, someone fixed. But he said, "This consciousness, monks, is luminous, but it is defiled by incoming defilements. The ordinary person does not see it as it is, and therefore, the mind is not developed." Luminous doesn't mean magical. It means clear, open, without a fixed center. What gets in the way is not the light itself. It's the idea that someone owns the light, that there's a self standing behind it. You may think, if no one is behind it, won't I disappear? But in truth, what disappears is only the confusion. Awareness doesn't go away. It simply stops pretending to belong to someone. When that belief softens, something quiet begins to settle. You don't feel lost. You feel less heavy. You stop reaching for the next layer. You stop chasing a final knower. The chain doesn't need to be broken. It needs to be seen for what it is, a series of movements, conditioned and passing. When this is seen deeply, not just as a theory, the chain stops pulling you in. And what remains is simple, not empty in a cold way, but open, alive, like a calm sky where clouds pass freely, without needing to hold on to any of them. This is not a trick of logic. It's not about being clever. It's about seeing clearly. That the search for a final you is what keeps you spinning. And the moment the search drops, awareness is just there, clear, present, but belonging to no one. And that's not a loss. That's a kind of quiet freedom. Part 3. Meditation, where the question becomes real. There's a moment in meditation that most people miss. It comes quietly, after the breath has calmed, after thoughts begin to lose their grip. At first, you're aware of your body. Then you notice the tension, then the thinking. And after some time, all of it begins to fade, not completely gone, but softer. You're still there, watching, knowing. You feel clear, maybe even peaceful, And then a strange thing happens. You realize you're watching that clarity too. Even peacefulness has become something you are looking at. Even the feeling of arrival becomes a new place to stand and observe. You say to yourself, "This is it. I'm finally present." But what you may not notice is that this comment is just another thought. It's quiet, it feels wise, but it's still coming from the same place, the one that keeps saying, "I know." This is the final disguise of the self, the one who claims awareness. Not the thinker, not the planner, not the dreamer, but the one who says, "I see now." It feels pure. It feels real. But in Buddhism, this is still the illusion. The teachings don't stop at calming the mind. They point past the one who says the mind is calm. They ask, who is it that knows this silence? And if you sit with that question long enough, something begins to shift. What most people call the observer is just the final knot of identity. You've dropped everything else, but you still carry this small voice that whispers, "I'm the one watching all this." That voice isn't loud. It doesn't need to be, because it hides behind clarity itself. It blends in so smoothly that most people mistake it for truth. This is why the Buddha taught about letting go not only of thought, but of the one who thinks. Not only of desire, but of the one who desires. And not only of awareness, but of the one who claims it. The one who says, "This is my experience." In deep meditation, there comes a moment when that last knot loosens. Not because you push it away, but because you no longer believe it needs to be there. You see it as just another ripple on the surface. Faint, but still moving. And then silence deepens. Not the silence of a quiet room, but the silence where even the idea of me is gone. It's not blank. It's not sleep. It's knowing, but not knowing as someone. It's like the sun shining without needing to know that it shines. The ancient texts describe it like this: where water, earth, fire, and wind have no footing, there the stars do not shine, the sun is not visible, the moon does not appear, darkness is not found. And when a sage, through wisdom, has known this for himself, then from form and formless, from pleasure and pain, he is freed. This place is not far away. It's not a fantasy. It's right here, beneath the surface of thought. It's the knowing that needs no knower, the seeing that needs no seer. When this is seen, the structure of the mind becomes clear. You see how it always builds a center. But now, there's no need to name. No one left to name it. Yet, awareness remains. Still, quiet, unclaimed, like an open sky that holds everything, but belongs to nothing. What you thought was you was only the shape attention took. Like water poured into different cups. It takes a shape, but it was never the cup. And now, with no shape left to hold on to, there's just knowing. And even that word, knowing, starts to feel too heavy. There is nothing more to become. Just this, and no one in it. Part 4. The Peace Beyond the Search. At some point, when the mind has searched through every layer, when it's peeled back all the thoughts, questioned every watcher, and even doubted the one who doubts, it reaches silence. But this silence is different. It's not the quiet between sounds or the stillness between breaths. It's the absence of ownership. It's like the space that remains when the builder stops building. And here, something soft begins to shift. Most of us carry a quiet fear that if we stop being someone, we'll disappear. But what actually fades is not presence. What fades is the constant effort to be present as someone. You don't vanish, you open. You don't lose yourself. You lose the need to keep yourself together. You don't collapse. You widen. The teachings often speak in images. One of them says, "Just as the sky holds clouds but is never the cloud, awareness holds thoughts, but is not the thought. And it's not someone watching the thought either." That's where the confusion begins. The mind imagines it must still be a thing, an inner subject, a center, an owner. But the sky has no center, and it still holds the whole weather. In this space, awareness continues, clear, gentle, bright, but nothing stands behind it. Thoughts still arise, sounds still move through the air, the body still breathes, but none of it belongs to anyone. This is where the idea of self truly ends, not in rejection, not in destruction, but in release. Release of ownership. Release of the subtle voice that keeps saying, "This is me, and this is mine." And something strange happens when you no longer own awareness. You don't feel empty. You feel wide. You feel light. Not because there's no experience, but because there's no weight of identity. You rest into openness. You are not missing. You are simply not holding. The Buddha compared this to the great ocean. It has one taste, the taste of salt. And this Dhamma, he said, has one taste too, the taste of freedom. But it's not the freedom of becoming something. It's the freedom from having to become at all. Nothing needs to be added. Nothing needs to be removed. And yet, awakening is here. You're still here. Fully. But not as a watcher. Not as a center. Just as presence, without boundaries, without name. This isn't an experience you can hold. The moment you try, it slips. It was always here, waiting, just behind the idea of me. Now it breathes, quiet, free, like the sky. Part 5. The Unshaped Presence. If you follow the thread to its very end, you may come to a quiet discovery. Presence itself doesn't have a shape. It's not a thing you can point to, not a layer you can peel back, not a place you can reach. What remains is simple, but not small. It's what some call the unshaped presence. It holds everything, yet it's not held by anything. You might expect it to feel distant or mysterious, but it doesn't. It feels like home, so natural that you've missed it all along, like breathing, like space. The unshaped presence doesn't need to claim. It doesn't need to hide. It doesn't need to name. It simply is. In the past, you might have called this presence me. You might have wrapped it in stories, in names, in memories. But none of those could ever hold it fully. Now the clothes have been gently set down. The Buddha didn't describe this as a place to arrive at. He spoke of it as what remains when clinging ends. Not something added to you, but what's left when nothing more needs to be held. There is no need to search for this presence. Searching hides it. It's like looking for your glasses while you're already wearing them. Unshaped presence is not trapped in any layer. It's not bound by the thinking mind. It doesn't belong to the one who observes. You don't need to protect it. You don't need to explain it. You don't need to become it. You were never apart from it.